Hey everybody, in this tutorial we're going to be talking about the Remesher feature with the InstaLOD tool in Character Creator 3. So the Remesher tool is basically used to optimize your character for game engine use. It can merge the materials and downsize the poly count to reduce the file size, so your character will use less resources in your game engine. It's a really useful tool if you have a crowd of characters or a lot of NPC characters in the background. It'll reduce the resource consumption in your game engine significantly. So here you can see a brief example of the different levels of detail. Level of detail 0 will be the original detail of your character, so the highest amount of detail. If you want to reduce it slightly for in-game use, we have level of detail 1, which allows for a high texture resolution, and level of detail 2, as we get further away, we'll have a lower texture resolution, and level of detail 3, remesh for a single mesh and a single texture. Okay, we'll talk more about these in more detail. Level of detail 4, a lower resolution, 2K resolution. Level of detail 5, a 1K resolution. And level of detail 6, finally all the way down to 512K. When you have a very far camera distance from your character, you don't need to obviously see the detailed mesh and the high resolution textures. So let's take a look at the character we have on the screen first. We have this soldier looking dude. And we have a couple of different items on him, some boots, skirts, some armor, and all sorts of various things here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to shift select these, and I'm going to take it into wireframe mode here. You can also use the Alt-3 hotkey, and you can see the total poly count for all the selected items that we have is 25,598. Not too bad, okay? But if of course we have dozens of these characters on the screen, we may want to reduce that a little bit further. Or if they're a further distance from the camera, we don't need all those details. Okay, and then if we select our, let's go back into normal mode for this, and back to our character, we can change the character to wireframe mode here as well, and you can see the results. Our character is a fairly high poly mesh, so obviously if there's dozens of these characters like I mentioned, you may want to reduce the poly count on your character to save in-game resources. Let's just go ahead and change that back to normal. Okay, so let's move on to take a look at the Remesher options first of all. So I'm going to select my character, go up to File and Export, and we're going to select Export FBX. Now we need to make sure that we have InstaLOD selected here, and the Remesher. We're able to keep the original avatar, and that'll be the level of detail 0, which we'll talk about in just a moment here. When we look in the Explorer, we have the option to choose how many level of detail meshes we want available. I'm going to choose 5 here. So level 1 is basically going to be the game optimized level. Like I mentioned, level 0 is the original. Level 1 will be game optimized with still with a high resolution texture size. So you can see 2K texture size. The mesh detail remains high, and the fuzzy target, which is basically the rounded out target for the amount of faces we want on our character, is set to the highest amount. We can also customize this completely by selecting maximum face. Okay, we can select however many faces we want to limit our character to when we export to FBX. We'll talk more about that in a moment. Now you can customize all these fully. It doesn't really matter which level you set, you can customize them fully. You can change this one to lowest, for example, if you wanted. But generally it's recommended you follow these presets. The mesh detail can be changed from lowest to high. The texture size can be changed from all the way from 512 up to 4K. Okay? And level of detail 2. Level of detail 2 will be basically game optimized, fairly high poly mesh as well, but it will have a lower resolution. You can see the base texture size is 1024. Level 3 will have a further reduction. Level 3 will be the first reduction where it'll merge into a single texture. Okay, so it'll merge into one single texture for the entire character and a single mesh as well. And level 4, we just basically further reduce the texture size. So level 4 will reduce to fairly low resolution for your texture size. Level 5 will reduce to the lowest right here. Okay, maximum face set to 5,000, texture size set to 512. So this will be your lowest detail of character. So again, essentially there's 5 different remesher levels provided, and you can customize all these presets to whatever level you like. So if I select level of detail or level 1 here for my level of detail mesh, and I choose export, it's going to come up with a warning window here, basically letting us know that we're changing the mesh, or either we're changing the mesh or the UV or both in this case, and we're going to not be able to import that character, that FBX file, back into Character Creator due to these changes. Okay, so it's not going to be our basic mesh any longer. It's going to be a reduced mesh with reduced textures. Okay, so I've already exported all these FBX files, and you can see the different levels here. We have 0 all the way to 5. Okay, so as you may recall, 0 is the original, and it says level of detail 0. So this is the original, 150 megabytes. Okay. Now level 1 here, you can see we have highest, high, and 2048 texture size, level of detail 1, and so on and so forth. So as we move along, it shows you kind of like the presets that I just showed you earlier. The mesh reduction for face count, the mesh detail that we want to maintain, as well as the texture size. Okay, so that's the corresponding face count, the mesh detail, and then the texture size is the third item, and they're all separated by underscores, you can see right here. Now, like I mentioned, when you export, if you keep the original avatar, which is this option here, keep original avatar, then it's going to export with this 0 one here. So it'll export the original as well as whatever detailed level you want. Okay, so here you can see a kind of a close-up of the different levels of detail setting, the different level of detail presets in 3ds Max here, all the way from the original down to level of detail 5, which has the lowest face count and the lowest mesh details. And here you can see that you can see the amount of detail that has been lost when we get to level of detail 5 as opposed to the original. Now level of detail 1, again, we're maintaining most of the mesh details, like 99% of it, and we still maintain a fairly high face count. Now it really depends on which level you want. Again, how far the camera is from your character, how many characters you have in your scene. That will all determine the level of detail that you want. Now if we take our number of LOD mesh down to 1 here, we can change our level to 1, and we can use maximum face value. So this will limit the amount of the face count of our final FBX export. We can choose, mesh details high. We can choose big texture size 2048. Doesn't really matter in this case. But we've set the maximum face value to 10,000. Okay, so I've already exported this. If we go to the Explorer folder, we can find that. I have this face count maximum face value right here, and here's the FBX file, the final FBX export. You can see 10,000. It'll say Warrior. Now Warrior will be the root name, of course, and it'll be 10,000. And we set the high mesh detail right here and 2048 for the texture size. Okay, and this is what it's going to look like in 3ds Max. Okay, not too bad. We have the maximum face set to 10,000, and we've maintained most of the mesh detail. And one more thing to keep in mind is when we do choose that maximum face, it's going to merge all the materials. So it's basically the same as using the merge all material in the other tutorial we talked about merging the materials. So merging all, it's basically the same as that. You can see here that we just have the one material for the entire character. So all those materials for the individual items, the individual body meshes, and accessory meshes have been merged into one single mesh and one single material. Okay, so thanks so much for watching, everyone. Make sure you check out our merge material tutorial as part of our Remesher tutorial series here. That talks about merging the materials and saving resources on your texture maps. And yeah, that's about it. So thanks so much for watching. Make sure you check out our forums over at forum.reallusion.com. And I hope to see you in the next video.